Good afternoon or morning or evening to you all. Welcome to the Finance Rebel Show. I'm Kamari Ellis, the Finance Rebel. The Finance Rebel Show is all about money, stocks, taxes, business, economics. But today we're going to talk about something a little bit more sexy, a little bit more fancy. We're talking NFTs, non fungible tokens, for all of you who like to get it confused. And it's more than just digital cards. But I feel like I'm not expertise enough or have enough knowledge of NFTs to really talk about it. So I went and grabbed the expert, the master splinter of this world, as I like to call it, to talk about it. I call her also the queen of Bitcoin, the queen of
You're gonna
blockchain.
stop calling me that.
I'm not going to stop calling it. I'm going to give you your
He
flowers
is in
now.
jail. I don't
I'm going
want
to
to
give
be the queen.
I'm going to give you your flowers now. But Miss Talisha Shine is here with us. How are you, ma'am?
I'm wonderful. How are you, sir?
Good, 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 good. So thank you for joining us today, taking some time out. And everybody is crazy about NFTs. It's all the rage. I saw you did an excellent interview the other day with some of the gods and goddesses of hip hop, Russell Simmons, Shyrock, and a few others. I don't know off the top of my head, but I thought that was great that everybody is now able to take advantage of this new technology, convert it into cash, convert it into wealth. So I just wanted to talk to you about NFTs 101. So
Yes,
can you start that off for us?
certainly. NFTs are definitely the rage at this point, but I think we need to level set the field because people are either confusing it with everything and then one thing. So we gotta make it sure that everybody gets it. So NFTs, which again are non-fungible tokens, is an asset of the blockchain. So this is where blockchain, the infrastructure, comes into play. There are 5 pillars to blockchain technology, which is decentralization, distribution, immutability, encryption, and the final piece is tokenization. And tokenization is truly the ability to have provenance and ownership of whatever digital asset that is created. So we're familiar with cryptocurrencies being the native token of the particular blockchain, but also that non-fungible part, which just simply means that it's a unique digital asset, that it's not fungible with anything else, meaning that you can't just trade it for 1-to-1 ratio. But those are those kind of things that I think we need to talk about. What is an NFT? Because it is more than a PFP, it's more than a JPEG, it's not just a picture. It is truly the portability aspect of whatever your digital asset is, that unique digital asset that it contains, because that's the most important part. The NFT in itself is just really the wrapper around whatever the digital asset is. And that could be also something physical, as a house, as a person. It can be anything that you want. And it also could be something that only exists in a digital space as well. So we need to make sure we understand that it's the thing around the thing before we kind of move it around and talk about it's just art, because that's just a single use case. That singular use case is the sexy part about it. I know everybody loves the arts and entertainment, but there are very many practical, pragmatic, non-sexy things that NFTs can do.
Okay, so give me an example. I know you said a house. I just recently saw a house get sold
Mhm.
using NFTs.
Yep.
Do you understand how that transaction
Mhm.
came about and
So
how?
the property, this is why, again, people who are interested in real estate will have this. There's the actual physical property, and then there's the land, whatever. This one, I think the one you're talking about is in California, and that the house. So the deed of the house is the digital asset. Not like the house is going to stay there. They're not going to do anything with it. But at the same time, it's the ownership and the rights to the ownership of the house. So every time the house gets sold, as we know, you can buy and sell a house, but that transaction is recorded specifically on the blockchain through the NFT. So that's the ownership piece of it. And then again, this is where fractionalization, you can't fractionalize the house. If you and I bought a house, I get 50%, you get 50%, but I'm like, okay, I want to move. We can't split the house in half. What do I do with that? How much equity do I have in that? That's where the fractionalization can be actually captured, digitized, and then I can take that portion and monetize it on its own, where you still retain your equity portion of it, and the house still remains the same old house.
But there's still the basic functionality of a house and recording of the deed, right? So I'm
Correct.
sure you still have to go down to the county of records to record that?
Well,
I'm guessing.
that's in true, yeah, right. At this point, there is, but then now the record and that deed is held within that because again, this is the wrapper of the NFT. The NFT holds the, all the utilities, all the maintenance, the deed, who are the owners, all of those things can now be put into the NFT to make that a singular unit. And that travels along with it. That's the portability and the track and traceability of it also. So we get to see who owned the house, what was the utilities, did some kind of natural disaster happen? All of that now can be recorded in that single unit.
Right, but so it's almost like two layers of redundancy, so to speak, in terms
right now,
of
yes.
recording. Right. I mean, you say right now, I guess you have your crystal ball out saying that all the governments
So again, these
are
are the
going to
things that
change
are
over to
moved.
blockchain.
Yes. I mean, again, this is where the systems, we have to use the current systems and we are in, certain systems are digitized and certain pieces aren't. We know, I would say government is not overly sophisticated in digitization. So it has to be still recorded
That's
in a
joke.
certain way. I mean, they're getting there. Hey, they still in Web 1. We moving on. But, they'll catch up sooner or later. Hopefully it'll be sooner. But these
But
are the
I want to go into the mechanics of this just a little bit deeper, right? Because I know somebody's still trying to get their head around this. It's like, all right, so who actually goes to the deed or recorder of records or recorder of deeds in whatever county? Is there a person that the NFT hires? Is the NFT owned by a LLC or corporation? How do some of those mechanics play out?
Okay, well, it could happen in any of those ways. And again, I don't know the particulars of this case, but say I own the house. So as Talisha Shine, I have the house and the deed. I can make my own NFT. I don't need to really involve anybody else. So I can go to a platform and put this deed in there. So I will give you an example. We've had different platforms, and I don't want to use the OpenSea, for example, but we'll just use that because most people don't.
That's what everybody knows.
Right. You don't want to use that, but that's one of the things that I can record. I can actually upload it with all of the details and information, and that becomes the metadata. That's the data that goes along with it that says this is when I recorded it, this is when I purchased the house, all of those other ancillary details that go into the contract that it is. And at that point in time, when I uploaded it, that is when it is written to the blockchain. And that's when the NFT is actually minted, because most people are feeling like, what does that mean? When it's minted, that means it is actually written. And therefore, there is now something that contains the document. All of that is my NFT. And it doesn't have to be, like I said, it doesn't have to have an associated picture. It could just be the document itself. And now I have it and it's stored in my digital wallet for whenever time. Like I said, now I'm going to sell it to you. You're going to have the digital wallet to receive this asset. And then we could just make the change. There isn't a broker. There isn't, any real estate agent. You just say, Talisha, I want the house. And I say, okay, you give me X and I'll give you Y. And that's the transaction can happen as seamlessly as that. Now,
but that transaction has to take place with ETH or Ethereum?
It could happen whatever, depending on what blockchain I put it on. Again, that's where it's not beholden to whatever chain that I want it to be. And I get to decide that if I want ETH, that's fine. If I want it on blockchain network, I can put it there. I can put it wherever I want it in for whatever exchange that you're willing to give it to me. So that is also the consideration of when I mint it, if I'm trying to sell it for certain things, and then that would be the applicable blockchain that I would put it on.
And then I'm assuming the seller, I'm just assuming a sale's happening right here. The sale would then be converted from whatever cryptocurrency to cash and then paid out.
It could be, again, if I just
right.
I can keep it whatever I want to, but this is where the smart contract, and I think most people forget this part too, that minting not only puts it on the blockchain, but there's a smart contract that's connected, because again, the smart contract is code that sits on the blockchain to tell you what to do with the thing that you're moving there. So at that point in time, say I want 10% anytime you sell the house ever in perpetuity. Like I want to make sure that I still get a cut of this house because I built it. That smart contract will record you and all your transactions from that point on, from that sale. And again, you could sell it somewhere else, or you could put it somewhere else to sell it because you want cash or you want a different type of cryptocurrency. All of that will still be recorded as long as it continues to go with that smart contract in mind.
Now we saw Nas do something very similar to that recently with his
Mhm.
album, and I believe he gets a piece of the sale of any resale
Right.
of any of the NFTs, and that's like you said, enabled through the smart contracts.
Yes, those royalties, there are particular contracts that do that because there's some of contracts are real simple. It's a one and done. And then there's other, I would say, just like thinking about the complexity of code that says, okay, when this happens, then that takes place. And so we have that kind of going on. And particularly with royalties, that's a large portion of what music NFTs have to contain, and also art. You'll see that if the resale value kind of comes into play and the original artist or seller can get that piece of it as it goes all along. So there's still the other sellers get their piece, but it always will come back to that as long as that smart contract is activated.
Can you tell us what a smart contract is? Just again, this is just for the layman here.
It's a snippet of code. It truly is a just if then that. If you're used to code that you never will see, it's just a simple, I'm going to make it that simple, but it's just telling you if I get this type of data, I'm going to look for these type of things. And if I get those type of things, I'm going to do this action. That's all it does.
Okay, but I was looking more for the legalized kind of way to explain it, because you're honing in on the tech aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
People are still having a hard time translating the legal aspect of the old school way we used to do things into how we're now looking at doing things now. So
but the legal is catching up too. There's legal ramifications of this. So
right.
That's still in the play at this point. So that's why I kind of revert back to technically this is what it does. And it's going to do that regardless of legality or not. This is what it does. Now, the legal premise is that some things may or may not be able to take forward because of precedents and other things that go along with that. But legally, if you have something that you own, you can sell it to another person in this particular manner. And again, how that will be represented and how people say yes or no to that will be seen, because that's playing out right now.
Right. And just for everybody that's watching and listening, right, there's a couple of parts of every contract that you need. You need an offer, you need consideration, and you need acceptance. Offer is, I say, hey, Miss Shine, Crypto Queen, I want some of your intellectual property. Will you sell it to me? Mm-hmm. She said, sure, give me $1. I'm sure it's worth way more than $1, right? I'm just using $1 for right now. I give her my $1. She accepts it, or she says no, right? I need $2 or I need $1 million.
I need 1 Bitcoin. That's what I need.
Yeah, but you would take the $1 million over the Bitcoin at this point, because you can get a whole lot more Bitcoin for that 1 million right now, right?
I just want a Bitcoin. That's all I want. But go ahead.
So she then takes the $1 million, because I'm gonna give her the $1 million so she can go buy like 20 Bitcoin and then be really, really happy then. And then she says, fine, here's my intellectual property. So I just wanted to kind of give you a more of an example that you can
that's the legal structure that it would have to contain.
Right.
Again, that's why it's useful in that sense. But once it's minted, that shows me that we have agreement that this is what I put up there, and this is again going through the aspect of the sale. Like, I have it now. This is what we can do, and we're bartering back and forth until that time, and then that's when the transaction is occurring. It's not occurring during our negotiation stage. It's occurring after the transaction, because once that transaction is, that's the formality of it.
Well, that's the formation of it all, or the fulfillment of it all, rather.
Correct.
Right. So like you said, royalties. So that was part of your offer. You offered to pay out royalties, and anything else. Just using Nas as an example, not to jump around on folks, but Nas says, for every spin I get or every stream I get, you get paid XYZ pennies or dollars.
As long as you hold the NFT and see.
As long as you hold, right. And if you sell, I get a cut of that sell. Correct. So especially for the artists, it brings a whole lot of equality. I think the word that comes to mind here, because artists, especially musical artists in general, have been raped and abused over the many, many years. But now it's coming to light. Some artists still accept this abuse, but now they have more options.
Right. And this is definitely compensatory aspect. And I think this is where we're moving into Web3. Like I said, I talked about Web 1, where we just digitized information. Web 2 kind of let us, have read and write and some e-commerce But really, Web3 is where ownership takes place, because now we have all the benefits of Web 1 and 2, but we also now have the digital asset ownership. And that ownership is really about us being what I consider businesses unto each other. So now, instead of just going onto the interweb and just being a consumer, you have something to come to it and say, I have an asset. I like to use this asset to gain another asset. How and where can I do that? And that's really the space that we're now kind of moving into. And it's not just for artists per se, because like I said, NFTs are in that space and making big waves there. But for practical everyday use, I think that's where I like to play, in the sense of like, you are a business. You have digital assets, your attention, your information, all of those things come into play. And now we have options such as, like, you go to Google every day. You go to Google and just say, I need some info. But what if you had the option to go to Brave browser, do the same thing that you would automatically do, but now you're compensated for that? That's a different option, because you're now saying, hey, I'm using you, I'm giving you something, I need something back in return. That's now where we're moving to. And I always say, like, that information, we've been in the quote unquote information age. I like to change it to data age. We really need to make the data more effective. And that's where information comes from. We need to make that now a true bilateral exchange, instead of just checking a box and saying, yeah, I want into this, into your website, but I got to give you all of my stuff. We don't want to give all of our stuff away now. We understand how valuable the things that we give to all of these free products that we use, because we're the product. That's where the kind of bilateral exchange comes in. And the best way to do that sometimes is to house it into something, have that kind of, structure in which to port it. Like, yep, I have it, and I'm going to give you a bit of it. I'm going to take it back and go over here a little bit, take it back. And each time that exchange happens, we are now transacting in a different manner, instead of, like I said, from a consumer to, I call that B2C. Now we're doing B2B kind of interactions now.
All of that is kind of ethereal for me. Let's do a real practical thing. I do a lot of taxes, right? Accounting work, boring work to the average individual, right? How could I use NFT? And obviously, yeah, I have some space here on some of these platforms where people look to me for certain guidance as it relates to finances and things like that. But how could an NFT be useful for me?
For you, it could be a membership. Again, you do services, and for the practicality of doing it over and over and over and making sure people are updated and have all the information, you can offer that as a membership service to you. So I come to you year after year to get my taxes done, right? All my information is always pretty much the same. I have some documentation, whatnot, but you're going to give me certain things. You're going to do a clinic for me to talk about how do I transition from an LLC to an S Corp or whatnot. That's a service that you're providing. That's a value add to me. And as a member of your community, if I hold your NFT, that's where I can get that big bang for my buck, so to speak. So it could be whatever you want to charge for it, but at the same time, it's ingratiating me to the community and also giving me a way to participate in certain things that, again, it's kind of transactional one-to-one all the time. But if you want to make it that you can have a conversation with me, like, hey, Talisha, I'm going to do this workshop here. It's a pop-up. Would you like to come? You could do that through the NFT. You don't have to send out from your email list or from this side. So it could be that practical, or from, I would say, this is me as a person who works in healthcare. HeathCare Data is really important. And as a patient, right? You go to all these places. You go to your PCP, but he sends you to a specialist, then you go to a lab, then you go to the pharmacy. All of those are transactions. And everybody has a bit and piece of my information. If I want to aggregate that and make sure that I have that available to myself, and now because of the 21st Century Cures Act, I do have that ability to have my healthcare records in real time. But it's hard to store all that. Where am I going to store that, on my phone or on my computer? Probably not. I need a really safe place to put it, but I also needed to be able to send it and then resend it, like at this point in time, and get it back. So again, I go to a specialist. He doesn't need to see all of my records. He needs to see a very particular incident of care. I give it to him for 72 hours. then it comes back to me. It's like, yeah, that's all you get. We don't have to store it. You just have to use it for the information you need, for the time you need. And that happens really well in an NFT. I always say, like, your kids, have meal plans that they have for all the time. I know mine has a meal plan. You need to re-up that. I need to see if there's specials, if I need to change some dietary restrictions. All of these kind of things that really happen in a very kind of pragmatic way, I think also can use those kind of tools in order to make them much more portable. Because again, if I want to move them around or I just want to track and trace what has happened, why am I doing this? I need an aggregated system to do that. And it's really easy to do that through the NFT because it's a snapshot of what I did in real time at any particular time.
So anybody can use an NFT,
Mhm.
but at what point does it really become cost effective? Like, because you use me, but I'm assuming I would need to have a certain amount of people to make it really cost effective, to make
I
it
mean,
useful.
again, the minting, that's where I say, like, if you want to create one, you have to see the expense of creating that one for your community. You're not creating, obviously, a 10,000 collection of these NFTs. Maybe you do 30 or 40. That's all you're doing. And again, I'm paying for it in the sense of I do the mint. That gives you money because I'm minting it. And then just by me being the holder of it, you're going to give me whatever you've promised me. I think Gary Vee is a great example. He had his doodles and, people, those went off the shelf like crazy, but he offered different events, books, things that he was going to give his community anyway, but that's in a different way. It made it very scarce and made it very exclusive to him. And then he made a restaurant. The restaurant is only open to those who hold the NFT. It gives them private chefs.
A real restaurant?
Yeah, it's a real physical restaurant that now has an NFT attached to it for those patrons who have it. They get very different perks than just the person coming off the street going into the restaurant. But those are those kind of things that made it very inclusive and exclusive to the individuals who hold it. So that's where the value comes in, because the value can be very subjective. It's like what you value versus what I value. But as the holder of that NFT, I may find something that I really want to hold onto it. And I'm not trying to put it on a secondary market and resell it and flip it. I'm trying to really get the bang for what I paid for, being a part of the community, being a part of the association, whatever it is. That's where the NFT really plays a strong part in that.
Yeah, I guess, everybody thinks about Gary Vee because he's really kind of dominated that space with his V friends or whatever you want to call it. So for me, when I think about it, only a guy like a Gary Vee or someone who has a really, really big audience, it would make sense for someone like myself. I guess I don't see it making sense for it just yet.
Right now, I think right now the price and where you put it, again, that's why I said there are a whole lot of blockchains that aren't ETH, centric, and that's another part of it. We have different places that we can put things, but we're not very familiar with them. And right now, most people don't. If your community doesn't see a value in it, there isn't any reason to to make it. And that's what I always say. You got to meet your audience where they are for them to see the value in it. And that's what I say. It speaks to people who want the thing and want whatever the thing gives them. And that's really the part. Like, I am a part of a mastermind, and the mastermind is offered to me in an NFT form.
Right. Okay.
Right? So me buying the NFT gets me all of these perks for a whole lot of time, and also gives me access to things that I would not have outside of the ownership of my NFT.
Gotcha. Now, earlier you said you would not suggest OpenSea. Is there any particular NFT marketplaces you would prefer or recommend?
I shouldn't say that I don't prefer it. I'm just simply saying that since they had a hack last week, it's one of the largest NFT spaces. So there are tons and tons of marketplaces, but I always say look around, specifically for people who are just trying new things and want to just kind of play with the technology. You don't have to automatically go to those big spaces because they are expensive. And a lot of them have kind of a test and learn area where you can play around and not have fees attached to it, so that you can truly get acclimated to whatever you're doing and attach, your artwork and the smart contract just to kind of see and play. It's more like a sandbox kind of thing, not the sandbox metaverse, but the sandbox meaning that you can play in it. So there are other places to go, but I just automatically, I know a lot of people instantly think they have to go to the biggest and the brightest, and you don't. You can have a very small collection And, for an artist who just wants to test the waters, you can do that very well on many different other platforms and find success. We have a lot of people, showing 1,000 collection and get sold out in hours. And they were just like, wow, that happened. Like the gentleman who sold his collection of his pictures over a year or two, and he sold for $1 million.
Yeah, I saw that. Right. Even the young lady who did maybe, I think it was like 4 million, her art. I mean, probably the most notable is Beeple. I think he sold like $69 million worth of art. But what I find interesting is about NFTs, the NFT craze, is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the people who are really benefiting from this are people that have been really working at their craft. And this is just on the art side, but people have been working on their craft for years. They didn't just say, hey, here's an NFT, I want to jump on this craze, and I'm going to make a bunch of money. People was making art daily for years for free.
Yes.
And nobody, I mean, he built up a following, right? But it wasn't for the money. It was really for the art and the expression of it.
There's a whole lot of art here. I said people have been creating art for a very long time. This is a mechanism by which to be compensated for that in a way. And this also spawns creativity. Now you do have, visual artists coming into the space like, hey, this is kind of cool. Let me see what I can do. And it does take participation. If this is the kind of space, just like the internet in the early days, it takes us to say this works, this doesn't work. We need different voices. And I think the arts and entertainment community have come in to this space, and it makes it really exciting because I can talk about NFTs. I've been talking about it since, forever.
Right.
It's the oldest use case. It's the oldest use case of the technology because it's one of the pillars. It's the way to understand your digital asset. But that doesn't seem to resonate with people. But if I say, hey, do you want, some sneakers or you want this artwork, people are like, yes, I want that. So it makes it translatable and makes it really relatable to people because that makes sense. If I talk about, your healthcare records, people are like,
blah.
Yeah, it's not exciting until I'm like, do you want to get paid off of your medical records? And then they kind of perk up. But that's where we are. So we just have to use the technology. It's always going to be here. I think.
But anytime you talk about money, you'll get this reaction.
I love that. But it's always, again, the technology has been here. I wish to really tell people like blockchain, while it's innovative, all the pieces have been here. It's just now the collective and how we're using it that really sets it apart. And the things that come out of that, because this is an application, how we use this application is really important. And kind of relegating, NFTs to just art is like saying the internet is only good for email. That it's used for a whole bunch of things and you're not using that one thing. It's just maybe the one thing that you use them a lot or the one thing that you became familiar with it. But there are tons and tons of other use cases out here that aren't just PFPs and JPEGs.
What's a PFP?
A PFP is your picture profile, or profile pic.
Gotcha.
Okay. Most people are flossing that, but again, that's the way we're going, and this is kind of moving to the other part of the metaverse. Is that these assets do carry over. You can use these things in the metaverse. You can have all of these digital assets, i.e., the real estate, the PFPs, all of that can actually come with you when you travel into that other space. And that makes them also have value in a very different way than you have them here in this reality.
So there could be or is a generational wealth effect with this as well.
Yes,
would you
very
say
much
yes?
so.
I mean,
absolutely.
Well, we talked a little bit about accounting and lawyers. I guess people could put their trust documents or their estate documents, real estate documents, inside of NFT. And for some of the larger families, they could probably use it to pull money together or do certain projects together.
Yeah.
I'm just spitballing right now, but
it could have a whole lot of different effects in the sense of keeping information, because it is a storage aspect for information. So you have documents of your family. I always say you can even do pictures. You can have NFTs of your family photos from generations away, but also from the documentations of the things that you want to pass down. This is where living documents or wills or those kind of things come into play, because we're going to see that come into play specifically with healthcare, power of attorney, those type of things. What I need to give you access to my healthcare records, or you need to say yes or no to keep me on life support, those documentations will be in an NFT.
Right.
So those are the most important kind of things to me. Whereas, yes, you can generate wealth from a whole host of things. And again, residually passing down the NFT from generation to generation, obviously causing it to have greater value. And at some points in time, again, the fractionalization, you can keep things in the family that before you had to make the call like, oh, we're just selling it, or oh, we're just doing this. And you kind of lose track of it.
Right.
When you sell grandma's home, well, grandma's home now can be fractionalized, and you know, even if somebody says, hey, I want to purchase that house, you get to have that and then pass that over to your family, instead of just a one and done transaction.
And it could be a way to say grandma's home, like you
Correct.
said, because it be fractionalized. And again, this is the generational wealth effect. So I got 100 cousins. Everybody put up, I don't know, $1,000. And you can do that over time, and you can track it, and it'll be more seamless, I guess is the word I'm looking for.
You can see the whole transaction. It's going to truly be the track and traceability is very much there when you look at it. And you can go to any browser and see all of the things that have happened. And again, all of that information is going to be stored, and it's immutable. So you can't just say, oh, I want to change this. We have to now add a record to it.
Gotcha.
And those are those kind of things that really the technology is useful for, but it also helps you in the sense of having, you know, I always say, like, you know, when natural disasters happen, you know, we see this a lot in Louisiana where they lost deeds to home because even the courthouse lost the information.
Right.
Well, that doesn't help anybody to get paid. And FEMA is not going to reimburse you for you saying, well, it was, if you don't have documentation.
Right.
That's the way to always keep the documentation. And because it can be written everywhere, it's distributed and decentralized. Now I have a record no matter where I am in the world. So I can say, yes, this is what it is. This is the information. And now it's readily available for anybody to use.
Now, you brought up OpenSea, right? You said they got hacked.
Yes.
$1.7 million.
1.8 no, yes.
1.8, okay. How does that happen? Because, you know, again, and I know what you're going to say, but this isn't for me. This is for everyone else, right? Blockchain isn't hackable.
Well, again, this is not a blockchain. That's it. It is a marketplace, just like anything else.
But it's a marketplace that's on the blockchain, correct?
No, this is an on-ramp to. That's what I'm saying. It's like this is where the infrastructure wasn't hacked. It was the actual system to get it to the blockchain that was hacked. And that's the very significant difference is these on-ramps and off-ramps, exchanges and all of those things. That's where the exploitation happens. It's in the process of writing the transaction. They didn't get into the transaction on the blockchain. So it was exploitation of a code that was leading into getting it to there. And in the exchange process, that actually was exploited by an individual, a little piece of code that was able to just kind of populate and pull and do the things that it was doing. And so then it was able to snatch individual information from others and take their NFTs from them. So that's what happens. And again, it's not that it's foolproof, because nothing is foolproof. But again, this is why knowing what you're talking about and where it's happening, you need to understand where these are. Because again, if you didn't store your NFT there, like say I bought an NFT, mine is in my ledger. So it's off of that chain. So even if they got there was nothing there for them to take from me because my NFTs are not stored there.
Gotcha. So the ability to offload them from that marketplace onto your wallet, onto your ledger is there, which kind of reduces the ability of being hacked. The
custodial aspect of all crypto assets and all digital assets really allow you to make sure that, again, this is why you need self-custody. You cannot leave things. I always say, like, go into the store. You go to the store, you take your stuff home. You don't leave it at the store. So buy it and take it with you.
The only problem with that is if you lose your key, I still haven't.
So you have to be very responsible.
I guess. So as we wrap up, what do you want people to know about NFTs? What do you want them to be thinking about when they hear NFTs, non-fungible tokens? What do you want to hear them?
I
What do you
want
want
them
them to
to
think
think
about?
of them as what they are, truly as the wrapper of a digital asset. So I don't want them to just kind of relegate it to it's just something, because it's never just anything. It can be whatever you want it to be. It can hold all the things that you really want it to hold, into including, entertainment and art and all of those things. But don't just get into the mindset of myopically thinking that it's just a picture. And why would anybody want that? Because there is so much more, and the utility of it will truly be seen. It's just, again, we're stair stepping our way there, but we really need to open and be receptive to what it can do. Because when you say, oh, I wish I had the ability to do something, the NFT may be the actual thing that you need. So that you can kind of think about it that way, where there are other things going on and you may just not recognize them at this point because you don't have a need for them. But these are the things that we're building.
Got it. Well, I don't want to take up your whole day, ma'am. I appreciate you taking some time with us today. I think I need to have you on more often so you could break down crypto, blockchain, NFTs more often, because there's always new developments that are happening.
It changes daily.
Yes,
Right?
daily.
It's a dynamic place. But again, we need to be in the space. Our voices need to be heard, and we do need to participate. So I always say, like, questions are great and you can find your way. And we're always here. I know I'm always here if you need me. So let me
Okay.
know.
Where can people find you if they want to ask you these questions?
Well, they can come into the community. I have a free Discord community called Black Blockchain Consultants, and we do a whole lot of everything related to blockchain, all the things, and its applications there. And I answer questions. So if you need anything, just kind of pop in and say hey, and let me know what you need.
All righty. Well, thank you, Ms. Shine,
All right.
the queen of blockchain. I appreciate you.
Thank you. You have a great day.
And everybody, thank you for watching. Do me a favor as you're watching this, like, comment, and share. The algorithms are always against us. It's working against us. This is the way we get the algorithms on our side, by you letting them know what you like. So liking the video, sharing the video, and subscribing to the Finance Rebel channel is always appreciated. Thank you so much.
Thank you.